Demonization is probably one of the biggest plagues on this country that we suffered throughout our history. You can go back to the very beginning when you decide who to found this country, Leif Erikson, Columbus, whoever, some Viking. We demonize the Indians. We demonize blacks. We demonize Japanese. We demonize women. We demonize gays. Over and over. And there's danger in this. And how do we get to this point? That's what I want to talk about. I think we need to realize this. If we don't defend those who are demonized, one day, the person that they drag through the street and spit upon could be you. It's true. It's true. And there's the demonization in this country. I didn't live in the McCarthy era, but it seems similar to what going on then. And I'm sure that demonization doesn't concern people as much as it concerns me. And I think the reason it concerns me is because there's something inside of me since I was a kid that when I saw people, I don't know if it came from my dad or what, because I don't remember talking about racism or any of it. But when I see somebody unfairly demonized, something just kind of snaps in me. And I do something that I just don't expect. And I do something sometimes dangerous to my own life or my safety. I mean, I can point out, I'll just give you several examples. The ones that most notably fit in my head. When I was in middle school, I was at a private school, and I was out on the playground. It was in PE class, and there was this one black kid in our class. His dad was head of the NAACP chapter. He wasn't even a friend of mine. And like back in the South, I mean, they probably had 3 or 4 blacks in our school, all whites. And a lot of the whites, at this time they separated boys and girls in different PE classes. I don't know if they do that anymore. So we're on the field, and probably about, 10 or 12 of the boys just started picking on him, making racist comments, pushing him, making fun of him. And he was just sitting there, and I was sitting on the other side of the field. I mean, in my own group. I didn't do very well in private school. I got in a lot of fights. I just didn't fit in. I don't fit in any one clique. I never have. And I was over there with a couple of my friends, and we were talking. And I watched it, and this one guy was really picking on him. And I don't know what happened, but something in me just snapped. And I went across the room, the grass of the football field, and I just pushed one of the ringleaders who was picking on the black kid and just knocked him to the ground and jumped on him and just started hitting him. And, it was not good. I got taken away to the principal's office, and a lot of things happened to me. I don't know where it came from, but I couldn't stand it. It just hurt my heart to see this young black kid who wasn't even a friend of mine being treated so badly, and people sitting there doing nothing. It was so obvious what was going on, and it just killed me. I fast forward a little later. I was in college, and I had a good friend of mine, and he was the editor of the paper. And he wrote this article really hard on the Puerto Ricans in our school. And they would stay on the porch late at night, and they would speak Spanish, obviously, to just connect with their culture, and because there are a lot of Puerto Ricans that went to our school, but they would talk really loud. And he wrote an article in the paper, and he called the front porch of our school, of this dorm, I said, Puerto Rico. And he printed in the paper. And it had some other bad things in there. And he got fired from the paper. And the guy, the teacher who actually oversaw him got fired from his job on the paper. And they had a big forum to see if they were going to get him kicked out of school. And there were a lot of people there. A lot of people there. And almost everyone there wanted him to be kicked out of school. And at the time, I was dating a girl from Spain, but a Latin girl. And I was in tight, the Latin community liked me. I was in tight with her. We had been going together like a year or so. And I went to this forum to listen to what they said about my friend. And they just sat up there demonizing. They were just going off. He's a Nazi. He's this. He's that. Kick him out of school. And it was getting really heated. I couldn't stay any longer. I went up there and I took the microphone and I told him, you know what? What they did, he was wrong. He has said he's wrong. But you cannot call him a Nazi. He was in his free speech forum. Man, did I get it. I got hailed down stuff. They had to pretty much escort me out of there. I think my girlfriend was shocked. The Hispanic community hated me. They keyed swastikas in my car. But I could just see this unfair demonization of my friends that was just breaking my heart around me. It was just breaking my heart. So I had to do something. It just snapped in me. One more example, more recent. I lived in California for 20 years. And when Trump first started running, I was on a mission to make sure he did not get elected. I literally hated him, which I see was wrong because, as I can tell you, hate eats you up more than it eats the person you hate. It drags you down. And it did it to me. It's a long story of why I got to that point. But I was at a rally. I think it was the Republican convention in San Francisco, and Trump was speaking there. And I made this sign denouncing Trump or something. And I went to this protest because all these people were going to protest it. And all my friends were like, man, you should go to that protest. You're going to get hurt. You're going to get killed. I was like, I got to go, man. Trump guy's got to be stopped. I hate him. He's hateful. He's Hitler. He's all these things. I've been spinning in my head. And I went there. And when I first got there, I saw a line of 8 or 10 really young people duct taped together across the road so no cars could get through into the hotel where he was speaking. And then when I got closer, I saw barricades, I saw riot police. But as it continued, people would try to bust in the front door of the hotel. They really wanted to get in there. In a way similar like people wanted to get in the Capitol. But there weren't enough people, and there weren't some really aggressive people there. So the people would always drag them back. Occasionally somebody would get close to getting in the hotel to go in and disrupt Trump's speech as he was given inside this hotel. But the funny thing is, this so-called protest was more like a party. It was a party of humanity because everybody there was pretty much against Trump. They had a guy with a boom box, cranking music. We were dancing, having fun, talking, everything. There was a guy in this big crab costume saying, crab sandwiches here. And he's in the middle of these protesters in this costume with this crab sandwiches $4.99 or something. It was hilarious. But we were partying and having this good time. And no commotion. And then I heard this noise amongst the boom box. And it slowly got louder and louder. More and more people peeled off from the party and went towards this thing. And eventually it got really loud. And I was like, hey, what's going on? So I went back there, and I went back, and it was in the back area of this parking lot, the back corner of this parking lot of this hotel. And the hotel had a huge fence around it, and it was in this back corner of this fence. And I heard all this shouting and screaming and commotion and a lot of agitation. And I really want to know what was going on. So I kind of pushed my way to the front through people. And when I got to the front, I looked, and basically almost right up against the fence, I saw these 4 or 5 Trump supporters. And they had, two or three of them had American flags around their chest like a cape, and bare-chested. And most of them, they had Trump supporter hats and shirts that said "Make America Great." And this crowd had basically cornered them, I would say kind of like a dog or a rat in the corner, trapped in the corner, and they were screaming at him and pointing fingers and cussing at him. And these Trump supporters were not saying a word. They were dead quiet because they knew the reality. There were at least 50, maybe 100 people there. And they saw the reality. They knew that they could not say anything, and they were trapped. They just stood there silent. And the rhetoric was getting more and more contentious. People were pointing their fists and flicking them birds and everything. And there was this one guy right next to me, probably a couple people down, and he had this bullhorn. And he was trying to antagonize them by using words that he thought would get them to react and do something stupid so they could jump on him and beat the crap out of them. But those young Trump guys weren't smart. They weren't saying a word. They were just scared out of their ass. And I just kind of watched the whole thing. And then I slowly kind of worked my way down the guy with the megaphone. And I just kind of watched him for a while. And he was smart what he was doing, but those Trump guys weren't falling for his bait. They just weren't doing it. They weren't saying a thing. And I looked at him. And at the time, I was supporting Bernie for president, and he had lost in the primary for a myriad of corrupt reasons from the DNC, how they handled Hillary Clinton, but we're not even going to get into that. But anyway, he saw my shirt. He saw my Bernie supporter shirt. And I said, hey man, can I borrow your megaphone? And he looked at me, and he stared up and down, and then looked again at my Bernie supporter shirt. And he didn't say anything. He just handed him a megaphone. And I took it, and I held it up. And then I walked forward, and I walked out of this crowd, this tribalistic crowd of so-called liberals, and walked through them and walked right in front of the Trump supporters and turned around, and they were screaming and doing all this stuff and pointing their fists and flicking birds, and spit was flying. And this guy with the thing was just staring at me. And I took the megaphone, turned up the volume. I said, y'all need to stop this. What you're doing right now is no better than what Donald Trump has done You were just doing it the other way. You need to leave these guys alone. They have a right to be here as much as you have to be here. And everybody started booing me, boo, and the louds got louder, and they couldn't hear me. So I said they weren't listening. I had to ramp up, and things were getting bad. And I probably shouldn't have done this, but once again, I could see the demonization of these people, and something just ate at me, and I had to do something. So I took the megaphone and I screamed really loud in it, "Free speech for all! Free speech for all!" I probably did it, I don't know, 30 seconds. And they kept booing me and everything, and they were just too loud. And I said, I wouldn't stop. I would not stop defending these Trump supporters. And these Trump supporters must have been shocked, this red-haired kid. Why is he doing this? He's going to get his ass kicked. And yeah, I could have got my ass kicked and maybe in the hospital. Who knows? But that didn't work. So I actually got behind the Trump supporters and I put my arms around them, put one arm around them, and I had the megaphone. And I continued to say, actually, I think what I did is I backed up into them. I didn't get behind them, and I put my hand around one's arm, around one's neck, and I had the megaphone. And it was not good. People were not happy, and they were getting really aggressive. And I was like, oh shit, I fucked up. I'm gonna get my ass kicked here. And the guy who had the megaphone was staring at me, and his eyes, if lasers would have seared through me. And he looked at me, and I was still screaming this, and I was looking in the corner eye, and all of a sudden he started walking towards me. And I was like, and I was scared, and I was like, oh fuck. And the rest of the crowd was kind of moving forward with him too. And he got right next to me, and he looked at me, and my heart was racing, and I was like, my life was in danger. I was like, thinking in my head, why the fuck did I do this? And I know why I do it, because I just couldn't stand the demonization of these Trump supporters. It just, even, I don't agree with what they're saying. I just don't agree in demonization. And this guy looked at me, walked right up to me, looked in my eyes, and there these people are coming in too, ripped the megaphone out of my hand, took one look at me, turned around, and walked back through the crowd. As he walked through the crowd, they let him through. The crowd must have known them, because they kind of parted, and he went through. They surely knew him. But as he went back, at least half the crowd followed him. So apparently he was some guy that they knew. And I sat there with those Trump supporters. They didn't thank me. They just looked at me, what a crazy fool you were. And yeah, I could have been hurt, could have been in the hospital or worse, but I can't stand for the demonization of people. I don't do this to brag. I do this to tell you that I don't just talk what I say, I walk what I say. But I think you really don't understand demonization until you've been demonized yourself. And in 2016, I was demonized. And I still feel the aftermath of that today, 4 years later, more than 4 years later. I did a stupid thing. After Trump after Trump won the election, and I was deep in my hatred for Trump, my blind, irrational, totally emotional hate for Trump, where I could see nothing good in the man. It was less than 12 hours after Trump won the election, and I went to a Walmart into a town I had just been moved in for months with my family. in Northampton, Mass. And I went to this Walmart to buy flags, American flags, to put them at half-mast to hand out to people, as I felt the country was in mourning now that Trump was our president. And one of my biggest problems with Trump, and still my biggest problems with Trump, is his treatment of women, the words he says about them, the way he treats them. And having two daughters, I'm very unapologetic of my distaste of what he does, and I do not like it at all. And in that Walmart, the love of my daughters and the scaredness, the confusion, the bewilderment, the anger that we had elected a man that treated women the way he does and did, the things he said, past and present. I had seen them. I had watched them since I was in the 90s. I had never liked Trump. Never. I went to New York to go to this restaurant everyone wanted to go, and it was Trump Tower. And because it was Trump Tower, I refused to go to the restaurant. I'm not going to support anything in this place. And this was in the 90s. And now this guy was now president. So I had a long history of not liking this man. And as I sat there with those flags, I started crying. I don't know why, because I don't cry that much. I didn't cry much at my mom's funeral or my dad's funeral. I do cry some, but not that much. I don't know why. I really wish I could cry more, because you always feel better when you cry. I just have never been able to cry that much. But I basically started crying this Walmart, bawling. And this Walmart employee came up to me. He put his arm on me and said, "You all right, man?" I said, "Yeah, okay. I'm just really upset because we've elected Trump. I don't know how I'm going to tell my daughters that we've elected a man that treats women, talks about them the way that he does." And he said, "You going to be all right?" And, I stopped crying. And I was sitting there, and I was still really upset. Really upset. And he had gone away. And this man came up in a cart. And I was kind of still on the ground in the aisle, and he said to me, and I must have still been crying because he said this. Maybe I was just sniveling or something. He said to me, "Are you going to sit there and cry, or are you going to get out of my way?" And I had a lot of emotion inside me right now, a lot of emotion, which I told you before. And I got up, and I was upset in so many ways. As he went by me, I noticed he had a red hat. I don't even know what the red hat said, but I saw a red hat. Regardless if it didn't even say Trump on it, I immediately, in my state of rage and confusion and irrational, emotional wildness, when he passed me, I took my hand, this man I did not even know. And yes, he was rude to me. And I took my hand and I aggressively scraped it over the top of his head and knocked the hat off. In the process, I did this with my left hand, I remember. And my left hand used to have a wedding ring at the time, and it has, it's hard. So when I did it, it contacted the top of his head, so my ring through his hat scraped over his head, and I'm sure it hurt. And when I knocked the hat off, it knocked it all the way down another aisle in the Walmart. And when I did it, I realized what I had done. I realized something that came out of me that I had never in a million years thought would come out of me. How that rage and hatred and emotional vitriol of Trump had come out on this innocent person. And I went and I grabbed the hat immediately. And I went and I put it on the man's head. And I said, I am so sorry. I should never have done that. I am completely in the wrong. Please forgive me. He goes, you hit me. And I go, sir, I am so sorry that I did that. And I go, here's your hat. And I said, I did not hit you. I knocked off your hat in my fit of rage. He goes, no, you hit me. You hit me. I'm going to tell the cop. I fell over. And I go, sorry, I know I hit you. I'm really sorry. But I see that you're fine. I'm sorry. I 100% am guilty of that. He's like, manager. So he's calling the manager. The manager gets over there. He goes, this man hit me. He goes, I didn't hit this man. I knocked off his hat. He said, no, I'm seeing stars. And he was totally fine. I knocked off his hat. He was scared. And he said, did you hit this man? I goes, yeah, I knocked off his hat. He goes, you knocked it? Yes, I did. He goes, well, sir, do you want to press charges? Yeah, I want this guy arrested. And he said, I gotta call the cops. He said, okay, call the cops. So I called the cops. Cops got there. Next thing I know, I'm marched out of there in cuffs. Police took my statement. I told them my statement. Took the man's statement. Went through a really bad period. Some depression, some anxiety, family. I went into recluse, a lot of stuff. I had to go, could have gone to 5 years of prison, had probation for a year, mandatory counseling, fines. A really dark moment in my life. But in that process, the paper in my town wrote a story on it. Remember, this is 12 hours after the election. And they wrote a story, and in this story they wrote that I hit the man. That I hit them because the man said that I hit him. And the paper did not come to hear my story. No, they didn't come to hear my story. They got his story. One side of that story. They didn't come to hear what I said. They said in the paper that I could not be reached for comment, which is a bold-faced lie because they had my information in the report. They could have very well gotten in contact with me. They didn't do it. They bent over to get in contact with the man who was assaulted. But it is assault. Let you know, in the letter of the law, if you put your hand in contact with another person, whether it's to knock off a hat or anything else, it is assault by the letter of the law. And I found that out. I found that out through my lawyer and through a court case that said I could have gone to jail for 5 years. Yep. But I did not hit that man. Paper didn't care about that. Like the media didn't care. They want the ratings. They want the story. They want that story. They demonized me in that paper. And around town, to this very day, I am known as the old man beater, no matter what I do in this town. That label, because the demonization in this town of me will always be around me. I've opened a gallery. I've hugged people, thousands of people all over this town. I've helped out the homeless in this town. I've done everything. But no matter what I do, I've done book groups. I've done everything. There is a select people that will always see me as that. And notably know in this town, if you defend Trump supporters as human, oh, Don't do that. No, they are demons. Demons. To this very day, I am demonized. Paper doesn't write stories on me. I get people all the time with hugs I do, my gallery that I've done, my One Love gallery that I have, all these things. The paper will take a picture of me, my signs and parades and everything, and they say, "Oh, you'll be in the paper the next day." And then it gets better, and I'm not in the paper. Have they done a paper on my gallery? People come in and say, has the paper done a story on your One Love gallery and your Reach Out to Humanity and all the people? Nah. They haven't done a story on me. They're not going to do a story on me. They want to demonize me. And they realize that the story they did on me was wrong. And they contacted me one time. And I said, you know what? I decided I was not going to make them retract the story. I figured it would make more commotion. Because anytime you retract a story, it really doesn't do any good. Because once the media demonizes you and says you're something, people, a certain segment of the public are always going to think that. If you just drudge it back up, it's just going to make it worse. So I told them, I said, I was very disappointed. And they said, well, we'd like to go out and do another story on you. I tell you what, I don't want to do a story on what happened then. I want to do a story on what happened now. I said, well, let us talk to our editor. They came out, no, we don't want to do that story. No, of course you don't want to do that story. You want to do the story on the past things and then still try to keep those on me. The ratings part, not the good news part. Of course you don't want to do that. So I understand the demonization of people. Boy, do I understand the demonization of people. And I can tell you right now, I have never been more disappointed in what I saw from Democrats than I have in what I saw in the Trump of Donald Trump. It was pathetic the way they demonized that man. It's not about whether he did an insurrection. I'm not even going to get on the fact of how unconstitutional that case was and the free speech rights you have. What I want to get into is why liberals don't pipe up. I don't know if you watched the case, but I did. And you know why I watched it? Because I have a gallery, and I'm in that gallery, and during this pandemic, not a lot of people come into my gallery, because, understandably, but I have a lot of free time sitting around waiting for people to come in, and people do come in by the dozens, but not a lot. So I listened to that case, and I was embarrassed by the abysmal, pathetic attacks of Trump. The tapes, the way they doctored stuff and demonized him. One that I bought into, this lie that he never denounced white supremacy. I don't know if you saw it, but the way they just cut this tape out. There are fine people on both sides. They demonized him the same way they demonized me, the same way people demonize blacks, Indians, women's, Japanese, gays, everything. Take a select part and they demonize. And they demonize Trump. And as Democrats, liberals, whatever, you should not stand for that. Whether you believe in what Trump says or not, you see the full tape of what he said, and he denounced white supremacy completely. It is embarrassing the way what the media does, the liberal media does. It makes me sick to my stomach. and Raskin and that, I don't know who she was, some black woman, and all those Democrats coming up and just lying, slandering them because they had blood in their eyes and all they cared is impeaching Trump, whether they did unethical or not, whether it was the fight thing or anything else they did, demonizing Trump. And they're doing it. People are doing it all over their land. They're demonizing people. They're demonizing people in Hollywood. They're demonizing Trump supporters, demonizing civilians. They're demonizing the very people who defended Trump. Do you want to know why Trump doesn't have an all-star defense team? Because the people that wanted to defend him were scared to. Because they knew if they defended him, they would be demonized, ridiculed, and their law firms would be assaulted. Because of this cancel, pathetic culture. That's pathetic that a man can't even get a proper defense because of this McCarthyism-like style in our country that's growing. It needs to stop. You should go back and you should look at the media, the liberal media in particular. And I can comment on this because I live in a liberal bubble and I see it in my friends, I see it all of it. And they just turn their back. The same way I saw people turn their back when blacks were treated badly. The same way I see people turn their back on the demonization of my friend in college. The same way I saw people turn my back on the demonization of Trump supporters just supporting their candidate in San Francisco in 2016. The same way I saw people turn their back on the demonization of me in the media and in this town, and still do today. They turn their back on the demonization of what happens, the Democrats and the media of Trump, as they did in that case, which was flat pathetic. Watch the videos. Watch the way they twisted the words of Trump to make him think that he never denounced white supremacy. They twisted the words to say that he called for them to fight and march on the Capitol when he said protest peacefully in his very words. It's pathetic. It is spineless, invertebrate language, and the Democrats fired it up very well. And it makes me so mad, so sick to my stomach. I am a fighter at heart. I fight fierce love, and I will do it to the day I die. I sat down with my kids yesterday, most notably my 13-year-old. I say, I want you to watch this video, and I want you to see what happens in the nation. I will not raise you to live like this, to live in this tribalistic where you fall victim to the echoes around you and not see the big picture, the full truth, and demonize people the way I watch blacks demonized in the South, the way I watch my friends demonized in college, the way I see Trump supporters and conservatives demonized. I will not let that happen. I will not educate you that way. I will show you this video and show you that the media is pathetic and all they care about is ratings, and politicians only care about votes. I will show you the full picture. I will not show you the scaled down, edited version where they say there were fine people on both sides. I will show you where he denounced the white supremacy and where he talked about how the baseball bats and helmets of the people on the left side had too, and how there were people on the side of the other side that just didn't want their statue turned on. I will show you the full picture. I will not show you half that picture. I will show you all these things. I will show you so you see all. You see all of humanity. That is what I show my daughter. And that is what I will show everybody I see. Yesterday, I had a guy coming in my gallery. It's a great thing you're doing here. I love what you're doing. And I sat and I told him my story. And I told him the demonization and what I went through. And his eyes went vacant. He turned off after that. He's just like, Trump is evil in his mind. And when I got into my story, he then turned off. I don't want to hear the truth. I don't want to hear the full truth. I want to hear my tribalistic views. I don't want to hear the lies that Democrats tried to spare in their attack of Trump. And thank God the defense brought out. I want to live in my bubble. I don't want to hear that Donald Trump is a human. No, I want to live that he's a demon. And he walked out of my gallery and continued to live in his tribe. I may never see him in my gallery again because he wants to live in the lie of his demonism. Be very careful who you demonize. Be very careful if you do. Be very careful who you drag through the mud and spit upon with the little knowledge and ignorance that you have. Because one day, that person that they drag through the street and demonize and hurl insults at, and you sit there helpless. It may be you. It may be you. None of us are angels. None of us are demons. As children, we are taught there are good guys and bad guys, and there's nothing else. Life tells us different. There are no demons. There are no devils. There are no angels of this earth. There's on the grayness of us all. We fall somewhere in that spectrum between. We must embrace the grayness in all of us because it is there. From Mother Teresa to Hitler, there's a grayness in all of us. You may not like to hear that, but there is. I've seen it throughout my whole life. But don't you dare demonize people. Because when you demonize people, you treat them less than human. When they are less than human, you don't need to give them those same rights, those same standards. You can treat them as an animal. You can drag them through the streets. You can hang them up. You can spit on them. You can kill them. You can hang them as they did blacks. You can take away their jobs. You can burn down their houses. You can burn their precincts. You can break into a chamber. You can hit them. You can kill them. Because they're not human anymore. They're devils. They're demons. Don't fall for it. Don't demonize. Humanize. See the grayness in us all. Teach your kids. Do not fall to this McCarthyism that's growing in our country. Whether you agree with the person or not, rise and defend friend and foe against this demonization. You can see it growing in our nation. Look around in Hollywood. Look around in Washington. Look around in your town. You will see it. You will see it. Because now we stand up against it. Because now we see the humanity in all. I didn't say you had to like the person. I didn't say you had to be best friends with them. I just said you need to stand up against the demonization and see the humanity in all. That's what I said. I didn't say you had to hug them like I do. I hug them all. I hug them all. I just had said you had to see the humanity in those people. Maybe you're not one of those people. Maybe you're one of those people that see it, but then show that to others. Show them to do that. Show them. I have neo-Nazi on my show. I have had, on my radio show, I have had felons. I've had drug addicts. I have had all kinds of people. But I can find humanity in every single one of them. And I can find fault in all the people, bad faults, in pretty amazing, standout people in this country. We must not demonize people. We must humanize. It's ironic that it took a trial of Donald Trump to demonize him, for me to even see more of the humanity of him and the patheticness of our media. You want to look at the enemy in our country? It's the media. It's ratings. They care about you. They care about ratings. Most politicians don't care. They care about votes. Votes. Care about humanity. Care about, for you, for your friends, for your family, for your kids, for the generations not born. Let's not do what they did to the Indians. Let's not do what they did to the blacks. Let's not do what they did to women when they burned them at the stake at Salem witch trials. Let's not do what they do to gays and still do. Let's humanize people, the humanity in all of us. Hope y'all have a good day. My kids are on vacation. One love, y'all. It's a serious talk I had today, but I thought it was must needed.